Now let's turn to another of our headline stories. A Ukrainian comedian has won a landslide victory in the country's presidential election. Volodymyr Zelensky polled more than 73% of the vote, with the incumbent President Petro Poroshenko trailing far behind on 24%. Mr. Zelensky is best known for starring in a satirical TV series in which his character accidentally became Ukrainian president. Well, let's speak to the BBC's Jonah Fisher, who's following all the developments for us. And Jonah, just an extraordinary result this, and all eyes now, I suppose, will be in the coming days on policy, because during the campaign, well, he was pretty sketchy on that, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. This has been a day, really, when the dust has settled here in Ukraine after the pretty extraordinary events of yesterday, when Volodymyr Zelensky, this comedian candidate, swept to such a huge victory in the election, the presidential runoff yesterday, defeating President Poroshenko, the incumbent here. So now, as you mentioned, attention is beginning to turn to what President Zelensky might mean for this country. It's going to be several weeks before Mr. Zelensky is officially inaugurated, but people like myself, experts here in Ukraine, have been spending this first day really trying to get their head round what President Zelensky just might mean for this country.
Дайте мне 10 минут спокойно.
This was the first time Volodymyr Zelensky was told he'd become president.
Ну что, пап? Доброе утро, господин президент.
It was 3 years ago, and the first episode of his television show,
Мы же слуги народа.
Servant of the People. Last night, fiction became fact, and the music from the TV show was played as Mr. Zelensky was told for a second time, this time for real, that he was Ukraine's next president.
To all former Soviet countries, look at us. Everything is possible.
Across town, President Poroshenko conceded, while muttering darkly that the Kremlin would be celebrating the comedian's win.
Ukraine could be quickly returned to the Russia orbit of influence.
Relations with Russia will now be the key issue for the soon-to-be President Zelensky. Can we expect any change in Ukraine's relationship with Russia?
The population is pretty decided upon towards what Russia is. We see the vast majority is as an aggressor.
So there's no real scope for President Zelensky to try and strike some sort of deal over the conflict in the east or negotiate over Crimea, for example?
He may try to do that, but at the same time, I think it would create a public outcry.
We have this freedom inside our hearts.
And what of the activists from the Maidan, the street revolution? What do they make of Ukraine's comic turn?
When I'm looking at this situation from the angle of changing the elite, Ukrainians wanted change. And if only Zelensky happened to be someone who can deliver this change. So we should work with what we have.
It's a step in the right direction, you think?
I would say this is a step, and we have to make it right.
There are still plenty of unanswered questions about Mr. Zelensky, not least his relationship with a controversial oligarch. But for now, it's important to reflect on a peaceful campaign, a fair vote, and what looks set to be a smooth transfer of power. The world may be laughing at Ukraine's comic choice of leader, but this country has lots to be proud of too. Jonah Fisher, BBC News in Kiev. So much still unknown, really, about what Volodymyr Zelensky's presidency might bring, in keeping, really, with his entire election campaign. But he has now gathered a team of experts around them, advisors, some of them who are quite well known here in Ukraine, and they are now trying to put together those plans which they will have to begin to put into practice probably in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, when comedian Volodymyr Zelensky becomes Ukraine's President Zelensky.
All right, Jonah, thanks very much for the latest there. Let's